Monaco is right around the corner, but let's not forget what happened in Imola. So before we head to the south coast of France, let's review what happened in Italy. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Tuesday, May 21st. My name is Euan. On today's episode, we're going to get into a Imola Grand Prix review. There will also be a Monaco Grand Prix preview episode coming out this week. So double dip of content this week because of the quick turnaround. We're in the middle of a double header here in Formula One. So the content will be coming thick and fast and all over the place. So definitely stay tuned to the channel for all videos and all the podcasts that will be coming out this week. While you're down there, like and subscribe to the channel, like the video would be greatly appreciated. The support is tremendous. Always looking to kind of reach out to more people and get the channel spread. And on the podcast side, 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever your audio platform is. But let's get into it here. Imola Grand Prix review with some facts and stats. The optimal team for this week was a surprising kind of lineup. A lot of our decisions came down to which two of McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari we wanted in our lineup, but it actually turned out that the optimal team was McLaren and Mercedes. Norris with the 2 times, Piastri in the lineup, Magnussen, Joe, and Bottas. That would have gotten you a perfect score for the week based on 112 million budget. I don't think a lot of us went there, so just good to know that Mercedes can sometimes still produce some points, but yeah, they are not in the conversation right now. So that was the optimal team. Positions gained: Kevin Magnussen with 6, Lance Stroll with 4, Sergio Perez with 3. Overtakes was Magnussen at 7, Stroll at 6, Perez at 4. And fastest pit stop: Red Bull 10, Mercedes 5, and McLaren 3. The picture here on for the podcast listeners is Kevin Magnussen making a little heart with his hands as he made it through the whole weekend without any incidents. The only incident was actually the one that happened to him when Oscar Piastri impeded him in qualifying, got Piastri a 3-place grid penalty on Sunday's race. But yeah, K-Mag coming through. I was kind of slating him in my early Imola thoughts and my Imola preview episode. I actually ended up keeping him in because of how the lineup ended up, like the sims and the data and like kind of my gut was feeling. But he survived one more week, and now I don't know if I want to get rid of him. So I've done a full 180 on Kevin Magnussen. I put my hands up there. Definitely have to apologize to the Danish driver for a pretty stellar weekend. 6 positions gained, 7 overtakes, and another 0.5 million price bump. Optimal teams here. So like I was saying, a lot of us on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, wherever you were in the world, were kind of debating between Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari as our 3 constructors. The data looked really strong for all 3. Red Bull was kind of struggling on Friday. They had a really bad Friday, FP1, FP2. So a lot of us were kind of feeling it. Can you get off of Red Bull right now? So this is kind of how it all shook out. This is the optimal team here. I already mentioned McLaren, Mercedes, Norris with the 2 times, Piastri, Magnussen, Joe, and Bottas. These are all based on 112 million budget, just because when you go to f1fantasytools.com, fantastic website, go there, check it out for all your kind of simulation needs in F1 fantasy. That's kind of just the benchmarker that they have. So hopefully, I should probably reach out to them and find out why they put that there. But that's just, I'm assuming, like the kind of average general score there. So that was 232 points. That would be your perfect score this week. So if you had Red Bull and McLaren as your constructors, your best lineup here would have scored you 224 points. So constructors, Red Bull, McLaren, Norris with the 2 times, Magnussen, Joe, Yuki Tsunoda, and Nico Hulkenberg. That would have gotten you 224 points. If you went with Red Bull and Ferrari, you would have had Norris with the 2 times, Magnussen, Stroll, Joe, and Bottas. That would have been 214 points. And then McLaren and Ferrari with Norris as the 2 times, Russell, Magnussen, Joe Guan Yu, and Logan Sargent for 228 points. So you could have gone away with the no Red Bull strategy there with McLaren and Ferrari. That came away with the highest points out of kind of the 3 combos that we were talking about there. Norris with the 2 times, Russell, Magnussen, Joe, Sargent. But I think a lot of people that went with McLaren and Ferrari still kept Verstappen in their lineup. So it wouldn't have been that much worse, but you probably didn't have Russell. Let me know in the comments below which one of these kind of three combinations you went with, or if you went with a different combination, and what you're thinking ahead of Monaco. I went with Red Bull and Ferrari and Norris. I had a pretty good week, 211 points for me, another like 2,000 place green arrow, up to 1,800 in the world. So feeling pretty good heading into the crown jewel of Formula One. I have Norris, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Joe Guan Yu, and Yuki Tsunoda in my team. So we will see how that's going to shake out this weekend, but we'll get more into that in the preview episode. The driver of the day. The title here is Land Don't Give It to Him Again, because Lando Norris is just dominating this kind of category of F1 fantasy. A very popular driver. Thanks to his win in McLaren or in Miami, I am rocking a new little plum McLaren hoodie. So thank you to Lando for coming home with the win there. 3 consecutive Driver of the Day awards for the British driver. He's now won 6 of the last 12 Driver of the Day awards dating back to last season. 4th podium in the last 5 races. So he's actually banging form as well. Like, I know it is a popularity contest, so we don't really love that in a game that we can't control, or I guess we can influence it a little bit. But 4th podium in the last 5 races. Like, he's driving pretty well. It's not just like a bad driver who is popular. Like, if Bottas was winning it every single week, we'd be like, this is a little bit strange. But it does kind of hamper the appeal of other drivers if we are just expecting Lando to win this. I mean, it raises his appeal, obviously. But yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer for the other drivers. The only thing now is that Lando rose 1 million in price after the Imola Grand Prix. So he is now a tier A asset. So he cannot rise more than 0.2 million every week. He has to get 3 times the normal or the average score to even reach that budget. So it's going to be tough for him to kind of keep rising in price. And then Charles, Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Sergio Perez can all rise 0.3 by doing the same barrier. So, or even like a smaller barrier. So it is going to be interesting to see where people go in Monaco this weekend. Let me know what you are thinking in the comments below. But for Lando, he had 37 fantasy points. He qualified 3rd, finished 2nd. He actually started 2nd because of Oscar Piastri's grid penalty on Saturday, 0 positions gained and 1 overtake. So it wasn't a very eventful race. He was closing down Max at the end. It made for a very exciting finish, but overall, in general, it wasn't the most exciting Sunday afternoon, but the last 10 laps were pretty thrilling. I listened to the Missed Apex podcast, and they were kind of debating if Lando has some like code with his engineer, that because it sounded like he was struggling, and then the Ferrari was catching up to him around like 15 laps to go. And then I went down to flip some laundry from the dryer into the washer because I was like, okay, like we'll maybe catch like the last 10 laps, see if Ferrari catches Lando. Came back upstairs and Lando was like 2 seconds behind Max all of a sudden. I was like, what have I missed? Did Max go off? But no, just tremendous pace from the McLaren. So their upgrades look fantastic. I mean, Oscar Piastri was flying around the track. If Imola was a little bit easier to overtake, or the cars weren't as big, I think Oscar could have easily been on the podium, as well as he was having a fantastic weekend. Qualified 2nd, grid penalty that should have been applied, so can't really complain there. But in general, the McLarens look fantastic, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go with them. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And once again, if you can't listen to the whole episode, the timestamps are in the description below, the episode description. So just jump around wherever you want. But yeah, McLaren is in my thoughts for Monaco this weekend. Difference of the day. So I kind of want to look at this. So the 3 guys that have won, the 3 drivers that have won Driver of the Day this year are Leclerc, Sainz, and Norris. Ollie Behrman also won, but I'm not going to include him in here as he's not currently on the grid. So points per race, I've got on the graphic here, I've got the driver, points per race average, how many times they've won Driver of the Day, their points per race average without Driver of the Day, and their total price increase for the 2024 season. So for points per race average, Charles Leclerc is leading the pack 31.3. Carlos Sainz is at 30.5, and Norris is at 23.4. If you do look at this on F1 Fantasy Tools, it will be slightly different because I manually took out Sainz's second race where he had his appendicitis. So the scoring is a little bit different there. So I just divided his by 6 instead of 7. Leclerc has won driver of the day once. Sainz won it twice. Norris has won it 3 times. Norris 23.4 points per race average. Not sure if I just said that. And then points per race average without driver of the day. So Charles Leclerc doesn't really fall down that much. Still 29.9 points. Carlos Sainz 27.1, but Lando drops from 23.4 to 19.1. So he's gaining about 4.3 points per race because of his driver of the day advantage. But without it, he would be trailing Charles Leclerc quite a lot. I know McLaren started off a little bit weaker this season. They didn't really hit their preseason goals, and they've really improved over the last few weeks. So maybe if I did this chart again, I would just take like the last 3 or 4 races and see how it worked there. But in general, Charles Leclerc seems like the more consistent driver. I said on X at my X account at Euan FPL that this was actually the first weekend. The Imola Grand Prix was the first weekend where Norris actually outscored Charles Leclerc without the driver of the day bonus. So Leclerc's been driving better than Norris most of the season. And you can see it in the price increase here. He's gone up 3.5 million. Sainz has gone up 2.5, and Norris has gone up 2.4. This is kind of making me think that it's a good time with Lando now a tier A asset. He's not going to rise as much. I got lucky. Us Lando managers got lucky with the 1 million price increase. So now we just got to cash that in, go back down to like Charles Leclerc or Checo Perez, despite a shaky weekend in Italy for the Mexican driver. I think the time is right to kind of go back down there, gain more budget up until that 25 million. And then maybe just keep dropping down. Maybe that's going to be the strategy for the first half of this season is ride these guys up to the 25 million, that drop back down, do it again. So you can go from Leclerc down to Sainz, down to Piastri, and then just keep making the gains. Maybe if Mercedes comes along and they can start joining the top 3 again, we could think about then doing that again with George Russell or Lewis Hamilton. But I think once we get to Oscar Piastri, that's going to be the cutoff. And then we're just going to be picking between all the tier A assets each week, which will probably mean that we go back to like a Max Verstappen heavy lineup. But to be determined. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you think that will be a good strategy. Just riding a driver up to the 25 million mark, dropping back down, building budget. We all want to score points. That's good. But yeah, Norris actually outscored Max this weekend, so it did work out quite nicely. Price change explanation at Imola. So this is a pretty common question that I get in the video each week. Like, how do you determine the price changes? What's going on there? Like, what's the score? What's the cutoff? So I think I did this correctly. So just let me know if I messed this up in the comments below or if I need to make some changes or I'm not explaining it properly. So how they do it is they take the average score of all the drivers and then they take the average score of all the constructors and then they kind of like tier them out like levels to get to each one. So this has the minimum price change, the medium price change, and the maximum price change score. This is all the positive scores. I didn't include the negative scores. Maybe I can do that again. I'm just a little bit worried that the graphic would be too small. But so for drivers, the average score among the 20 drivers was 10 points this weekend. So the minimum price change score was 5 points. So that meant that if you scored 0.5, you didn't go, you had positive gains. So I think for the tier C assets, that's 0.5. For the tier B assets, that's 0.1 or 3. And then for the tier A assets, that's just no price change at all. I think it's 0.1, 0.3, and then a million for tier B. As for the constructors, average score was 26. So the minimum price change score was 13. The medium price change score was 39. And the maximum price change score was 78. So hopefully that will make more sense as we move along. I'll keep doing this each week to after in the race reviews to kind of get our heads around like where our drivers were, why they went up, why they went down. But hopefully this graphic explains it a little bit better. Let me know if I need to make it clearer in the comments below, like what I could improve on this little chart right here. But the price changes for the Monaco Grand Prix coming up this weekend are listed here. So Verstappen went up to, 0.2, Norris went up 1 million, Perez 0.1, Charles Leclerc 0.3, Sainz 0.3, Piastri 0.3, Russell, Hamilton also 0.3. Alonso went down 0.3 actually, and I think that's the first time that a tier B asset has gone down into the negatives, and that was a new discovery. So I don't think that had happened so far this season or last season when they were trying to figure out the price changes here. So that is if a driver scores like the lowest amount of points, like in the bottom tier of the scoring categories. I think we now know that tier B assets go down 0.3 points, because when Max DNF'd, he went down 0.7. So we know what the tier A lowest scoring bracket is. So just a little bit more context that we're learning here. We actually still don't know the tier C. If they score 3 times the amount of the average, what they go up, it's probably going to be 1.5, but we don't know yet. So it could be 2 for all we know, but we'll see how that goes. So Alonso is now 16.3 heading into Monaco. Lance Stroll, just because he's in tier C, he went up 0.5 just from simply kind of finishing the race. Although it was a pretty good weekend, no mistakes in general. The got into the points, got knocked out in Q2, but getting into the points at Imola is still pretty good for Lance Stroll. He's still a viable F1 fantasy asset just because he is in tier C, so it's pretty easy to build budget with him because he just has to kind of not mess up, which is at sometimes difficult for the Canadian driver, but in general, he is a pretty good budget building asset to have. Like I said here, Lando Norris is now 25.4 million, so he is up in the tier A assets. So he will only be able to go up 0.2 every weekend, and that's if he cracks the maximum scoring barrier. As for the bottom 10 drivers here, Ocon, Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, and Joe Guan Yu all went down 0.1. And then Ricardo, Alexander Albon, Bottas, and Logan Sargent went down 0.2. Magnussen rose 0.5, so that was nice to have him. Like I said, got kind of lucky there as well because I was slating the Danish driver quite a bit in the last 2 episodes. And just with the way that the Sims worked out, I couldn't really get rid of Magnussen for a -10. I think I could have gone up to Stroll, so it probably would have been pretty indifferent overall, but the budget was the same. Maybe would have gotten a couple more points there, but yeah, in general, because there was only one DNF and it was Albon, it was kind of pretty evenly split between the like 10 risers, 10 fallers kind of deal there. Constructors here, Red Bull went up 0.1, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes went up 0.3, Aston Martin and Haas went up 0.5. Visa, Cash App, RB, Alpine, and Sauber went down 0.1, and Williams went down 0.2. So they're now 6 million, Sauber 6.3. My little brother actually went with Haas this weekend, and he got the budget building, but he fell quite a bit in the overall rankings just because, they didn't score enough points. So I think right now in F1 Fantasy, it really is just picking between Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari every week. Maybe Mercedes can get there. There was some kind of chatter out of Lewis Hamilton that they're eking closer. So for Lewis Hamilton to be saying positive things about that car is kind of like perks up your ears a little bit because he's been pretty negative about what the Mercedes project in this set of regulations. So we'll see how that looks over the next couple of weeks. I don't think we're going to really learn anything around Monaco. It's all going to be about qualifying. Monaco, no overtakes, really kind of a procession. So qualifying is going to be a huge deal. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit here. But yeah, in general, Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, that's the 3 you're picking between. Aston Martin, they did go back up into the tier B asset pool. So they are now 15.1. Should they drop again, they'll go back down. So we'll see how that kind of bounces around all over the place. But for now, Aston Martin is off the table again if you went with them in Imola. The F1 Fantasy Pole Position League updates here. The Jays continues to lead the league at 1941 points. So I think that's the second week in a row that they are leading. So good job by them. Pesa Racing 3, 1924 points. Leapers 1 is 1,884 points. Kevin Race Day, 1,880. And Seat for Signs, 1,866 in fifth. I think that's their third week in the top five. So they are pretty consistent. As for the Imola top five, for the first time in a couple of weeks, we actually did have a top scorer. So the CVB team scored 291 points with their limitless chip. A team scored 286 points. And then there were a few of us down here at 284. Team number good 2. Captain Team SAA, Winners Team 2024, and Illogical NY all scored 284 points. So good job by them. But yeah, we actually didn't have like 100 people using the Limitless chip this weekend. So it was a little bit different. But yeah, the Jays leading the league at 1,941 points through 7 races of the 2024 F1 fantasy season. Final fix possibility here, starting with Charles Leclerc. So, yes, this is what I tweeted out yesterday on X. So, early F1 fantasy thoughts for the Monaco Grand Prix. I would move Norris to Leclerc and Red Bull Racing to McLaren. This leaves me with enough money in the bank to final fix Verstappen in for Leclerc after Saturday's qualifying, should things get messy in Charles's home Grand Prix. So, yes, this could be an option here, as Monaco is a traditionally no overtake track kind of thing. The cars are so big now, you really need something to go kind of wrong in the pit stops, a la Ferrari 2022, if anyone remember that, when they tried to double stack them and kind of cost Charles the race, I would say. But yeah, so the thinking is I would start with Charles Leclerc here, and then depending on the qualifying results, like say Max gets pole, which is highly likely, and Charles gets second, I could final fix and bring Max in for Sunday's race. I would think that he's not going to throw that away, even with the performance upgrades. I think they were on the Missed Apex podcast, they were referring to in the 2019 Monaco Grand Prix. I think it's the first season of Drive to Survive as well. So maybe it's, yeah, it should be that race. Daniel Ricciardo won the Monaco Grand Prix when his engine was only like 80%. So it's really, really hard to overtake at Monaco. So it's kind of like, if I have enough money in the bank to go anywhere, that means that I can kind of leave myself open to getting the pole sitter, and that might be nice. But I could also still get the budget gains from a guy lower down in the price bracket. So Charles Leclerc, then I could, depending on qualifying results, use final fix to bring in Max. I keep Leclerc's price rise, and I would get Verstappen's Sunday points. And then on the following Monday or Sunday night, whenever the points come in, I would just get Charles Leclerc back into my team after the final fix was used. It might not be the best use of the final fix chip, just because there could be times where people take new engines, but that didn't really happen last year. I think a lot of people were banking on that happening in the 2023 season and never really came to pass. So if you can kind of lock in some guy that's like Esteban Ocon last year, qualified third and finished third, got a podium. So if something like that happens as well, you can definitely think about using the final fix chip there. Like say Yuki Tsunoda, like I mean, he is in my lineup right now, but say he has an absolute like barnstorming qualifying run, finishes fourth. It's likely he's going to finish top 5 in that race. And if you don't have him, say you have a Zhou Guan Yu that is qualified in 17th, and you can get to Yuki Tsunoda, I would definitely use the final fix chip on that, because it's very likely that Tsunoda is going to, he's probably going to get 3 times the amount of the average points for that weekend. And also, like, you won't get the price rise from Zhou Guan Yu, so that would be a bummer, but you'll get so many more points from Yuki Tsunoda to Zhou Guan Yu. But we'll talk a little bit more about this in the Monaco Grand Prix preview, which will be coming out tomorrow or Thursday. Very quick turnaround here. And while I'm talking about content, FPL season is over. Fantasy Premier League season is over. So I have a lot more free time on my hands. And I just was kind of reaching out, seeing what kind of more content you guys would be looking for. If I was to up the videos to 2 times a week, I could do a Monday episode very easily, like a review preview. This is coming out on a Tuesday because F1 Fantasy couldn't get their final results done until yesterday due to telemetry difficulties at Imola. So that was the little delay in the Grand Prix review episode. But yeah, I'm looking up the videos to 2 times a week. So let me know in the comments below or comments on the podcast or hit me up on X at UNFPL what kind of content you guys would be looking forward to or think there is a kind of gap in the F1 fantasy world that you would be interested in me possibly doing as I try to up the videos to 2 times a week. But yeah, there will still be a Monaco Grand Prix preview episode coming out over the next couple of days. It'll probably be like a very quick preview and then mostly focused on team selection. So yeah, you should definitely still watch this episode as well and share it with all your F1 fantasy buddies. Session times for the Monaco Grand Prix are exactly the same as they were in Imola. So practice 1 at 1:30 local time, practice 2 at 5 p.m. local time, practice 3, 12:30, qualifying at 4, and the Grand Prix at 3 p.m. That's 12:30 and 4 o'clock on Friday for the UK, 7:30 and 11 a.m. on Friday for the US East Coast. Saturday is 11:30 and 3 p.m. for the UK, 6:30 and 10 a.m. for the East Coast. And then the race on Sunday, 3 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. UK time, 9 a.m. USA Eastern. Upcoming schedule, Monaco this weekend. Then we got a break, Canada, then Spain. So yeah, we got it's spaced out a little bit more, but then the summer season is going to be in full swing. Lots and lots of content, kind of building up to the next sprint race in Austria right after Spain. So it's going to be very interesting to see how our budgets kind of get along. And if anyone's going to be able to kind of get that second really premium driver with McLaren coming in and being a really strong constructor now with Red Bull and Ferrari, it could be a lot easier for some of us to get up to a strong second driver. I think I saw some teams this weekend with Charles and Carlos or Charles and Oscar, and if those are looking like two really strong drivers in Austria, it could be interesting time to maybe play the extra DRS chip. But that is for a very, very in the future episode. Like I said, let me know in the comments below if there's any kind of content that you guys are looking forward to or would like me to kind of take on as the summer moves along. No fantasy Premier League, so I've got quite a lot of spare time on my hands. But yeah, like and subscribe to the channel whenever or if you can, that would be great. We greatly appreciate all the support. The Monaco Grand Prix preview episode will be coming out over the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that, which will be a lot easier if you subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel, wherever you are watching and listening. Let me know how you did in Imola. Let me know what your thoughts are heading into Monaco. It's going to be a quick turnaround here. Lots of content coming out. And yeah, thanks again for watching and listening. And I will talk to you next time.